This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I have a very lovely guest, the founder and owner of Booms, Blooms, Pepperona Peppers. I have Verona Widboom joining us. Verona, welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
You drove quite far to be in the studio with us. I'm so excited to have you in studio.
Thanks. I'm super excited to be here today.
I love going to farmers markets. I've been to farmers markets across the country. I lived in California and in Virginia and North Carolina. I love going to apple farms as well. And we ended up connecting because you have these wonderful peppers. And me and both my daughter and I love hot sauces and spicy food. And my daughter wanted a special hot sauce. And so we went by your booth at the Dallas Farmers Market and came across you. And we were impressed by not only your product, the variety of product, but the quality of the product and your operation. So I invited you to the program and thought you need to share your story. Part of our mission in the program is to help business owners. There are over 30 million small businesses, roughly 30 million small businesses in the United States. And it's fun seeing their evolution and their growth and what inspired them to create a business. So tell me about your business. What do you do and how do you do it?
Absolutely. So I love starting out with how all of this transpired, because if you had asked me 5 years ago what I'd be doing today, or even told me what I'd be doing today, I would have said, no way, absolutely, that's crazy. I would have messed it up somehow, probably. And so the beauty of how all of this came about was really that it was organic. And it just came about from passion for something that we personally love, my husband and I, as well as all of his family. And then just building on that and growing it for ourselves first. Right. And then finding that other people wanted what we created.
Now, what was that start like, though? So you're not only married to your wonderful husband, Casey, if he doesn't mind me saying his name, but you also have 3 children.
Yes.
So you're balancing a business as an owner, you're farming.
Yes.
It's not like you have 100 employees doing all the work for you, but managing a family alone is complicated. But
absolutely.
What inspired? It seems like there's a connection between maybe the kids and how the business started. But you're managing a lot. Yes. So I'd love for you to tell our listener.
Yeah. So his family that I married into, they were all originally farmers from Minnesota.
Oh, very cool.
So they were truly an inspiration for us, being that they have some land, they grow their own food, they know how to preserve, because that for generations was just instilled in them. They still own farmland in Minnesota. Cattle farmers that actually were completely self-sufficient. They actually grew their corn for their cattle. And the stories they tell me about how their family lived underground and survived winters. And all of that was an inspiration to me when I originally met my husband.
Underground, just to survive
the cold and the winters.
Oh, wow.
And then preserving what they grew. So if you didn't grow it, you didn't eat it, kind of thing. And then you learn to get through the times of the year when you're not actually getting any fresh produce. And so preserving that to survive. And they still do it today.
I love it.
And so watching them in their kitchen.
To interrupt you, but I love the small farmers across the United States. A lot of them have sold their farms now, and a lot of the farms are managed by larger companies. But there's something really special about the small farmers. There's a friend of mine that I've been trying to get on the show. She's an agriculture. It's ag woman in agriculture located in Texas. But I want her on the program to talk about exactly what you're discussing. But amazing story how they survived the winters by being underground and also preserving the food underground because it's so cold, it sounds like. Yeah.
So you learn to preserve what you're growing. And I saw them doing all this, and I literally was like, teach me.
Right.
My father-in-law, he was canning all of his food. He was fermenting, and hot sauce was just one of those things.
Wow.
So that was the first thing that we actually started with, aside from growing our own vegetables and things for our family, like he does. He cans all his tomatoes and whatnot. I started with that. The first thing was a hot sauce just for ourselves.
Okay.
My husband and I were like, we want a hot sauce that actually tastes good.
Right.
And that is the consistent message that our customers tell us now. Right. And that's what we started on. We wanted something that actually tasted good, but was spicy. Right.
Well, I tell you, the audience, I don't think they've heard me say this before, but my daughter and I, we love to try different hot items. So we went by a hot chicken place. I won't say the name of them. And we got the hottest we could. And it had zero taste. It was very hot, but there was zero taste. And so I won't try that one again. It was way too hot with no taste. But I appreciate you having good flavor with your hot sauce.
That's pretty much going to be consistent throughout everything that we do hot sauce wise, because it's a culinary experience for our customers too. Right. A lot of times they take the tour through all the different sauces and they'll maybe come up and ask for heat first. But I let them know, flavor is first on our sauce. So try all of the different varieties and you may even actually end up with something that has no heat at all.
Right.
And just love the flavor of that. So flavor first, heat secondary for us, but we can definitely bring it because we grow the hottest peppers in the whole world.
So I want to get to some of those peppers, but if you don't mind, just because I was driving here thinking today about all of the people that are starting small businesses, that have started and are starting small businesses. When did you come up with that moment? Were you just watching a program, putting the kids to bed, and you thought, here's what we need to do to create a business? What was that moment like where you decided to start a business from it? So it sounds like you began it just to provide for your family, but what was that day like that you decided we're going to make a business out of?
So, I'll back up to the progression of how this came about. And people always say, oh, COVID 2020, right?
Right.
A lot of it had to do with that. But we actually were ahead of the game in starting something like this because we found out we were pregnant with our last child November of 2019.
Right.
I was working full time for a company that I was traveling all over the world. I was going to Italy and whatnot. And our two older children at the time were in daycare. And I was at the point where thinking about having a third child, working full time, did not go hand in hand. Right. I was a dedicated mother, but I also wanted to be raising our children and be there for our kids. And so my husband and I, at that point, we started to figure out, finances, juggling some things and what would work for us. Him working full time, me dedicating my time to staying home with the three children as we were going to have another child in 2020. And so we rearranged some things. We figure out, what would work for us financially. And then I was going to try to focus on maybe coming up with something as a side hustle.
Oh, interesting.
And so the first thing that I actually thought about was candles.
Okay.
If this is crazy, that was my focus. And my father-in-law had a candle business back in the days. He sold at Canton and markets, and they did very well with it. And with that being said, he taught me how to make candles and all sorts of things. There was something missing for me in that. I didn't feel like that was it wasn't my passion, but I also felt like that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. Right. And so after a few months, I kind of dropped it and it fell away to the wayside. And my husband and I started growing some super hots just for ourselves to make a hot sauce.
Right.
And our backyard had a couple different pepper plants. We started finding challenges with finding what we needed.
Okay.
And that's why we started growing the super hots.
Finding the peppers or the hot sauce that
the peppers we needed.
Just for your family.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're not readily available in stores typically.
Interesting.
I mean, you just can't find Carolina Reapers and scorpions and things like that.
So by the way, I want to get back to the Carolina Reaper at some point, but I want you to finish this story because this is intriguing.
So we were like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And his dad literally was like, oh, just grow it.
Right.
And he was like, why not? Of course, just grow it. He's like, I've got these seeds. Here's where to find them. Just grow them out here and whatnot. And so that's the way it all began. 3 plants the first year.
Okay.
The second year we had 50 plants.
Wow.
And then last year we had over 3,000 plants.
Oh, wow.
And so every year I just started growing more and more to meet the demand of what we needed for our sauces. But then I'll talk a little bit about the other things that we started focusing on as well.
So with the first year, were you growing them in your kitchen?
In our backyard.
In the backyard,
yes,
okay.
Just backyard peppers, and we made our own sauce for ourselves.
How did you learn how to grow them? Like
my father-in-law, he's a farmer.
A lot of people are learning on YouTube now.
Literally like this kind of soil, this kind of compost, when to start your seeds. That's key for us. We did find in the very beginning that there's a whole nother level to seed starting, and we invested in a grow tent. Which the grow tent in our garage was a game changer for us because it enabled us to actually start our growing season earlier.
Okay.
And in our zone, typically you don't even plant your peppers out till about the first week of April. Okay. So you actually are seed starting in January.
Right.
So January comes, and most people that grow peppers or anything else that's an annual here in Texas, they have to germinate those seeds, get them to a certain stage before we plant out. And so we invested in the grow tent, and we were like, this is amazing. We can start growing these plants in our garage a couple months prior to planting out.
So essentially you see them in your garage first, and then you take them outside. So tell our audience what a grow tent is, what that looks like. Where do you find, or how do you build a grow tent? Did you go online to find?
So yes, my husband went online, Amazon actually, and he got us a grow tent that would fit inside of our garage. We have a 3-car garage, and it takes up one whole car space, pretty much. And he is in sort of engineering at work. Okay. Very good with things like that. He was able to get all the lighting. So we have the grow lights. Nice. We have the humidifier. He has the temperature control probes. We have a heater in there. So we create almost like a jungle environment in the dead of winter inside of a little tent in our garage.
That's amazing.
So it's about 80 degrees, and that's really the prime temperature for our seeds to germinate.
Sure.
And they need lots of humidity, lots of warmth, and that's the way we start, even till this day, a lot of our seeds.
That's amazing.
So that's kind of how that all began, because we were like, okay, we need a bigger space to germinate. We need to get them to the next level, pot them. Right. Second, just because we are such plant lovers, we already had our whole plethora of plants that we were growing for ourselves.
Right.
My husband specializes in figs. He loves dragon fruit, so he grows dragon fruits. He does fig cuttings, and we were growing a pineapple at the time that we were just like, let's grow a pineapple and see if we can do this. So the grow lights.
Starting in your garage as well?
Yes, in our garage with a grow light. And we actually did get a pineapple, by the way. It took us, I think, almost a year and a half to get a pineapple. But hey, we achieved that goal. We were like, we're going to grow a pineapple. Not to get off topic, but
that's fantastic.
We were already plant obsessed.
Are you still growing pineapples, by the way?
We are not.
You're not? Okay.
I'm like, I did it once. I'm good. I don't have the space for it now. Sure. And with that, the peppers really came about because of something my husband said to me. We were going all over the place. I grew up, and I'll talk a little bit about my personal history and childhood. The focus. He said, just focus on one thing and do that really, really well. Yes. And so I'm all over the place. I'm creative. Yeah. I have so many ideas that I wish that I could make them all happen.
So that sounds like an engineer to me. Yeah, with his comment. Now, and here, don't lose where you are. But I think from a Business Decoded perspective, that is an absolutely critical point, because sometimes people go into business and they try to accomplish too many things. And let's say they, like in yours, they might want to have 100 different product or SKUs versus just focusing on one first, making it really, really good. In fact, I met with, a couple of weeks ago, I went to a grand opening of a new business for a friend of mine. And they launched this retail business. It's a martial arts studio. They launched this business. They started with 19 locations and realized that was too many to start with at once. So they reduced to about 6, and they thought that was a little bit more manageable. But I think for those starting businesses, starting with a product that you love, like you mentioned, versus going with candles, starting with a product that you like and that makes sense for you, and then starting and being very focused on that product and executing really well before it expands. So sorry to interrupt you, but
no, that makes total sense.
But the test of pineapple is kind of cool.
Yeah. We were like, okay, we have so many plants. And when I tell you a little bit about my childhood, the plants will make a lot more sense.
Okay.
From my passion and just my perspective on growing healthy things and tropical things and whatnot. But he really kind of was like, let's just really stay focused on one thing, do that really, really well. Right. And then we can expand from there. So Booms Blooms was actually the first thing. Okay. And it was so much more. I was growing vegetables and flowers, and I was, trying to do so many different things. And then we were like, let's get pepper specific. Okay. And my father-in-law started joking at the dinner table one night, and he's like, oh, you're Pepperona Peppers now, like Verona, right? Pepperona. Right. And I said, okay, that's going to be the name of the pepper side of things. And it sounded great. And I drew up the logo. Right. I'm an artist. Right. And so that just came really natural to me. And then from there, it just kind of took off. We were pepper focused. Right. And my husband really helped me to kind of just, work on just that one thing. And he's the fixer. He's that person for me that if I have an idea, he's like, you've got this dream, you've got this challenge, and he makes it happen. That's amazing. He's really the person behind all the creative ideas that I want to harness. But he's like, here, let's put it in order, or let's get it, working. Right. Working, first of all. Then after that, he said we have to have a greenhouse. So that's the next step from the grow tent. We had to expand up to the greenhouse because the greenhouse is that midpoint between germinating, hardening the plants off, getting them up potted, and then actually planting them out in the spring. And so we were like, we've got to have a greenhouse. My father-in-law and mother-in-law have a couple acres, and every time I went out there, I saw this little spot, this little beautiful little spot that was empty. And we asked them, we were like, do you think we could put a greenhouse out here? And my father-in-law, being that person, he was like, I have some pieces in my barn of a hoop house that I've always wanted to put up. Okay. And he said, I bought it. It was used, and I've got all of, the moving parts that we just need to put together. Very cool. And at that time, he got it out, and he was like, let's figure this out. Let's see, how we can put this up over here. And from that point on, it just started to grow into something a lot more. Now, how far of a distance is it from your garage to the greenhouse? So in Fate, it's about 20 minutes. Okay. So it goes from our garage, and then I take the plants out, but they're still really small. Right. I make some trips, and we actually, I'll tell you a little bit about our focus for this year, and where we're going forward in expanding. The greenhouse, my husband and I, my father-in-law, even my mother-in-law, we built it ourselves. We put it up, and so no hired hands to help, just the four of you. It was us. I love it. The only thing that we did do was we had the land graded for the pad site so that we could put it on some good level land, and then from there, we actually did all of the drip lines and the infrastructure for that. So we put water in, electric, all of that, so that we could do all this on a bigger scale.
You know what I love is, and I've had this conversation with a few of our guests, you look at successful business people like you and your husband, of course, and the same thing. I was with the CEO of Bluebell Ice Cream, but it was the same thing, how significant it is to have a spouse that you can partner with. Someone that you can bounce ideas off of and have that supportiveness within the family is just incredible to hear about. And I'd love to have you tell us more about that later, but I like seeing that interaction and hearing about that interaction, because I think it's so important as you start to build and grow a business, just to have someone you can count on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Him, his family, everybody, they're just in love with the fact that we're utilizing that space that hadn't been used and making something out of it, like growing more, sharing more. And we all have a lot of good ideas, but, implementing them is key.
And it's a lot of work. So you go from your grow tent to the greenhouse that you built. How large is the greenhouse?
So the greenhouse is 16 by 40.
Okay.
And it was a hoop house. And we sort of made it a hybrid where we can actually heat it. So we did a solid front on the north side.
Can you tell our listener what a hoop house is?
So a hoop house is basically you've got your metal hoops.
Right.
And you have layers of greenhouse grade plastic over it. And that protects your plants in the winter from wind and little bit of sun. And it gives you the ability to get an earlier start on the growing season. And my husband, being the engineer that he is, he actually rigged the sides to go up and down.
Oh, very cool.
Depending on the temperature outside. He automated a lot of it for me.
That's amazing.
Because it was just me doing a lot of this, and he still works full time in addition to our business. He was like, okay, you've got to water all these plants, and he put them on timers. So it all literally just kicks on for me, does that work, which originally I was hand watering all these plants. I still do all of the harvesting and planting and things like that.
Did he add any automation to it as well, or notifications? Do you have a special app?
We've got apps.
You do.
We have. This is really funny when I tell a lot of my customers that I'm live streaming my plants right now. It is true. I've got the Wise app. He's got a camera in the greenhouse so I can check in on my plants.
That's fantastic.
And sometimes if it's getting really cold outside, I'm looking in the middle of the night just to make sure the heaters are still on this time of year, because we had some dips in the temperature the last few days. And so they're still a little bit tender, but we've got the heaters in there, and I'm able to check in on my plants in the middle of the night. And then I can go back to sleep.
That's incredible. So what was your first plant that you planted?
First plant? Yeah. I started with a rose bush.
Okay.
And when I met my husband, he actually had no plants at all.
Okay.
So I was like, we have to start somewhere. We got one rose bush, and he fell in love with that rose bush. And his childhood and growing up around gardening, it started to be cultivated by kind of my passion for plants as well. I always had house plants growing up. My parents were big on house plants. But I can tell you a little bit about my childhood as well.
Sure. Well, let's come back to that. So your first plant was a rose bush.
A rose bush.
Now, was that your first plant that you took commercial, that you began selling? What was the progression from that plant?
That was just in our backyard, a rose bush in our backyard that was absolutely beautiful. And it just kind of got us excited about growing more plants from there. If I gave you the list of everything we grow now, it's pretty amazing. We have an orchard. My husband loves fruit trees, so he has 40 plus fruit trees, all sorts of nectarines, peaches. We have mulberries, blackberries, blueberries.
Have you opened this up yet to
We
visitors?
haven't.
You haven't?
I've had people come out there, though. Yeah. The very first year we sold plants, which is another part of what we do, is since I am starting the seeds and growing the plants for us anyways, I started doing extra to sell at the Dallas Farmers Market or sell at markets for other people that were super passionate about not just peppers, but rare peppers.
Right.
Because we don't compete with the big box stores. We're not able to produce on that level. However, I seek out the rarest seeds that I can find.
Okay.
So Peruvian varieties, things from like the rainforest that people here have maybe never seen before.
Amazing.
And the pepper community is actually a pretty significant portion of the people that I interact with.
Right.
On that level, growing social media and connecting with other people that are passionate about peppers, new varieties, new crosses that are emerging, the newest, hottest pepper in the world.
I love it.
Which I can talk about as well. That is truly incredible what Ed's doing. He holds the record for the hottest pepper in the world. The Pepper X is the newest one.
Okay. And we'll come back to that one as well. I think that was the same person that created the Carolina Reaper.
Yep, right? He is. Yeah. So he topped his own record. So
we're nearing the end of our first program with it. I'm excited for part 2 of our conversation. But for our listener to wrap up this show, give kind of an overview of the business today. So how many plants you're growing? You mainly focus on peppers. Where are you selling them? Mm-hmm. And how are you generating customers based on that, not only from the market, but from a social media? So can you tell us about?
Absolutely. So this year is our 3rd year selling at the Dallas Farmers Market. Okay. In the first year, I only did a few days, kind of testing the waters out. Sure. I only had a few sauces and I had no plants.
Right.
I had no fresh peppers. And I let the market know, I said, look, it's the middle of winter for a farmer, right?
Right.
This is our produce that we've preserved, our hot sauce. But I will bring it. I said, no doubt, right now, I'm germinating our seeds. Our plants will be here at the market soon. And that was sort of my pitch to them to let them know that we will have a bigger presence at the market going forward.
Right.
And the hot sauces are not our only focus. It's all you can see right now.
Right.
And they understood that. They were like, we're super happy to have you. We need more growers. We need more people that are bringing added value products from their farm. Right. So from your small farm right directly to the consumer. Not commercial or wholesale or anything like that. We're not in any stores. And it's all handmade. So homemade, handmade. For us, that really is still the basis of what we do and what we are.
Okay.
So we sell at the Dallas Farmers Market. We just launched bringing our plants for the spring season last week. So that was our soft launch.
Okay.
And we just partnered with a company called Norfolk Healthy Produce.
Okay.
And I'd love to tell all about that. That's not a pepper, it's a tomato.
Okay.
So for us venturing out on something really cool and new. So that's for this year, 2025. We're licensed growers for the purple tomato.
Okay.
Which is an incredible new genetically modified tomato.
Okay, interesting.
So that's new.
So how many SKUs do you have now? What caught my attention is when you walk up to your table, very professionally done. It doesn't look like just your normal farmer's market, small farm. Very professionally done. Your bottles were very well done. So the bottling or canning process, your labels, absolutely well done. Can you walk us through some of that piece? How do you make yourself look like you belong in a Walmart? You're still a small business?
On that. I'm the creative director.
Okay.
So I always remind my husband of that. I'm like, this is for me visually. I actually went to school for marketing, fashion marketing, and my father and my grandfather both artists. And my dad, as a kid, I watched him make labels for Dole Pineapple, and everything he did was hand illustrated at the time. And he did move on to teaching for a school computer design. And so I just watched that process all throughout my childhood.
Wow.
And so the art part came very naturally for me. I immediately was able to create labels, and I knew what sort of look I was going for. So I created all the logos, all the labels. I had them printed, and the bottle and the shrink band and everything down to that. I knew exactly how I wanted it to look.
Very nice.
With that being said, I do understand that some people immediately will look at our product and think, oh, this is something that maybe you can buy online, commercial and whatnot. And it really just comes down to the fact that my husband and I are very detail oriented. and we make sure that things look professional and they are done right.
Right.
So whether we're
like it.
going to that next step or not, either way, for us, that's important. And so I did all of the design for our booth and things like that as well.
Very well done. And I know sometimes when you go to, whether it's a farmer's market or some of the other exchanges, sometimes people will buy items that are already produced by someone else and resell it.
Oh,
Yours is completely fresh. It's just incredible what you've done. And I have to tell you this, during our program, my daughter that came to me to the farmer's market in your table, she texted me. And so I told her that you and I were on air. She's texting me. She's in college. And she was so excited to hear that you were on the show. So you've done something to impress a 19-year-old who loves your type of product. Yeah. Verona, I appreciate you coming on the program. In our next segment, I'd love to dig more into some of the background of ramping up your business and what that looks like, just to inspire and encourage others. And then I'd love to learn more about your background. You mentioned some of the art in your history. That would explain where you are today. And then I'd love next time, tell us more about your business. The variety of peppers, the variety of products you have. You have some unique names of your products and what they represent, because you told me when we were at your table that it's not just a hot sauce, even though it has peppers in it. You have other sauces, but not specifically necessarily hot sauces. So I'd love to talk more about that next time. But I'm so happy to have you here in the studio. You're such a unique product and a unique business.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.